Hi, everybody. So I'm going to do the session on ways to maintain clean and accurate data. Now, obviously, the number one method, I guess, is prevention. If you can keep bad data out of your CRM, then you don't have a problem. But that doesn't always happen, right? There's so many ways bad data can come into your CRM. So we're going to talk primarily about prevention, but we're also going to talk a little bit about some cures. If it does get in your database, how can you handle it? So takes us into our agenda. So first of all, I'm going to talk about ways to maintain the most accurate database that you can. Talk about getting rid of duplicates or avoiding duplicates altogether from coming into your system. Maintaining a style sheet, a sort of organized way that everybody enters data into the system. And then finally, we'll talk about how setting up the proper sharing, hierarchy, and settings can actually also help prevent issues with bad data in your CRM too. All right, so who in here has data in their CRM right now that is incomplete? Right? Like to the point you can't even contact that person. If you can't contact them, then they can't buy anything from you. And that's a problem, right? They're just taking up valuable real estate inside your system, and you don't want that to happen. So a lot of you probably will recognize a scenario like this. We have a contact name and an account name. We have no email. We have no phone number. So we can't call this person. We can't email this person. There's just no way that we can reach them. Now, wouldn't it be great if there was a way to make it so your sales reps had to enter this information? If email and phone number were something, they didn't have a choice. They had to add in the system. We do have a way to do that. And so in our CRM, you can make any field mandatory. And I know Ricky touched on this a little bit, but basically you can choose whatever field you want, and you can say this is something you have to fill in. Now, you don't want to do this with every field, because then that's another reason people stop using the CRM, is they have to gather too much information and they don't like it. But you want to identify the information that's critical for your business, and you want to make sure that those fields are mandatory. That's something they have to fill in, or they can't save the record at all. All right, another thing you want to watch out for is junk data. So you probably see stuff like this a lot. The primary cause of data like this coming in your system is going to be your web forms. So you don't have any CAPTCHA on there, a bot can come in, enter the same record a million times. It really clutters up your database. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to turn on the lead approval, web form lead approval in your CRM. And I'm going to demo that in a couple of seconds, but just want to let you guys know there is a way to keep this kind of data from coming in your system through the main way we usually see it. All right, duplicates are my favorite. Because how many of you in here have multiple entries of the same record and they belong to different account managers? Yeah, that's bad. Nothing will get your sales reps at each other's throats faster than finding out that they're both prospecting the same person. It's bad. You don't want this to happen. And it unfortunately happens a lot. So here's an example. You can see we've got two records. Steve Brady, same account name, same email address, both owned by different contact owners. So one's Carrie and one's Miranda. We take a look at one of our records. We see there's no follow-up. There's no notes. There's hardly any information. We look at the second one. Miranda has follow-up. She's been in touch with Steve already. So in this situation, it's really easy to say Miranda's the one that we want to give ownership to. But this is just a small sample. This is two records. What if there's dozens? What if there's hundreds? There's so many records in the CRM that you have to go through each one of them and determine, oh man, who's the one that owns this record? And then it gets even worse if Miranda or Carrie calls up Steve. Steve says, okay, yeah, I want a demo. Miranda finds out that they're both talking the same. It comes into a problem. So what you want to do is find a way to keep situations like this from ever happening. And that's what I'm going to demo. We're going to demo how to avoid letting duplicates into your CRM. Okay, so here is our test account that we have. And we have a way in our CRM to set it so that duplicates cannot come into the system if they have an identical email address. So that would allow you to avoid a situation like we saw with Steve Brady, where there was two entries in the system. And the way you can do that is you'll want to go into Setup, and then under Customization, you want to click on Layouts. This is a really odd place for this to live, so I definitely recommend if you've got your stuff out now, you probably want to go in here and find this spot. So under your leads modules area for layouts, you just want to scroll down and you want to find this little option here that says do not allow duplicates on the email field. And you want to make sure that that is selected. Once it's selected, it's just letting you know this can be an issue if you have an API set up. Once this is selected, this means that a duplicate cannot be added if the email address already matches. So it's going to give you a little alert. So we can just try it right now. Say we come in here and I see that we've got, let's take a look at Aiden. We've got Aiden in here. So if I try to add another record with Aiden Shaw, and I do new lead, and then I try to add that email address in there, when I go to save it, it's going to immediately tell me no. It's going to say, hey, a lead with this email address already exists. So it doesn't let you add it. This is exactly what would happen if you're sales reps. Usually customer will call in, they answer the phone, and they start talking to him. They go to add him, and they find out immediately he's already there. So if they're a good sales rep, they'll just click on View Lead. They'll see what's in there now, and maybe they'll add a note letting the current account manager know that they can follow up with them. All right, so that's great for manual lead entry. If you're going to add a new record in the system, it wouldn't let you in. What about importing? So when you go to import a file, we actually have an entire section for duplicate records and asking how do you want to handle those. So probably a best practice that you want to do is always do skip. And this will basically tell the database when you go to import the file, if that email address is already in there, it's just going to skip it. So when the import's finished, you might have 700 leads were entered and 300 were skipped. And that, at first you're like, no, why did it skip these? But that's because they already live in your database and it's actually helping you out a lot. All right, and then finally, I'll also touch real quick on that web form situation I mentioned earlier. Now this is good for two reasons, because in your web forms, if you turn on the lead approval, not only will it basically prevent those duplicates from coming in, but it also will allow you to kind of filter out the junk so you can see it before it gets added into the system. All right, so here's a web form that I have. It's pretty. And if we go into our next page, where you're entering the form details, at the very bottom is the option for request for approval. So if you have any web forms on there now, you want to go in and turn this on. Basically what this does is, like I was saying, it prevents the record from coming into the database until you're ready for it. So once this is green, you'll just hit save. And then where this goes in your CRM, if you come into your leads, and then you go to lead tools, and then approve leads. So we can see right here, these are all the leads that have been submitted into our system for approval through a web form. And right here, it's going to show me any duplicate. So it filters out non-duplicated from duplicate leads. So I can see Charlotte's already in my CRM, but she tried to go in and submit an entry through a web form. And if I try to approve it anyways, it's going to tell me right away, hey, you've got lead approval turned on, and this one's already in there. So you can cancel, you can remove her, you can do what you need to from there. And then also, like I said, more on the junk side, I can see right here, records like this, I don't want in my system. So if I have this approval turned on, it's not going to let it in. I can just come in here and I can delete that guy right away because I know he's not real. All right, so that's great if you haven't been adding any data in there yet. And you're probably like, oh, great, I can take all this back, I can implement these things, but what if I've got a bunch of junk in there already? What if there's already a bunch of duplicates because we didn't know about the manual lead approval or anything like that before now? The good thing is, in our CRM, we also have a few ways to handle duplicates once they've already come in. So you can put in methods to keep it from happening, but if there's already a bunch in there, you can clean it up. So there's two different ways you can do this. Now, if we take a look here, we see Harry Goldenblatt. There's 3 records for him. If I'm working with Harry and I suspect or I know that there might be duplicates for him, I can come into his profile, and then right here under More Actions, I can click on Find and Merge Duplicates. What it's going to do is search the entire database for the records, or for all of the records that match the criteria of the one that I just came from. So we can see now we've got 3 instances of Harry in the system, and it's basing it off of first name, last name, company. It's just searching for anything that matches. So it says, hey, you've got 3 in here. And what you can do is you can actually select all these guys and then go into a page where it lets you choose which fields from each record you want to carry over into one merged value or one merged record. So in this case, I can look through, I can pick and choose. All of these belong to Carrie, so that's great. I don't have to worry about who really needs to be the owner. But I can choose the company, what needs to be, what carries over for this record. I can pick and choose. And then once I hit merge, it's just going to send all 3 of those into one record. Any notes, any activities, any potentials that were on each of the records will all be carried over into the newly merged record that I've got. This is more for like an individual option. What if you want to search across your entire database? So this is just great if you know Harry may be a duplicate, but if you're not sure and you want to see, hey, how many duplicates do I have across my entire system? So if you come into lead tools and then deduplicate leads, it'll let you search across the entire lead module. You can choose one of 4 fields. Email's usually the kind of go-to for most people. And then it'll find any instances of duplicates in the CRM, and it'll tell you how many. So like with Harry, we had 3, but we kicked him out, so he's not in there anymore. So we've got Jack Berger and Skipper Johnson, and we've got 2 duplicates of each of those. And so what it allows us to do then is just kind of go through each one of them. And then you can find your 2 records that match, and then go through the process like we talked about earlier. Now, obviously, you're probably thinking, this is a little bit time consuming. You're like, gosh, if I've got all these duplicates in here and I have to go through each one of them like this, that's absolutely right. Like, if you do a search and you see that there's duplicates, you can always just select the duplicate and delete it. But the problem is it doesn't let you compare like this and pull over the fields you need. So in this case, if I had just gone through and I had decided there's 2 Jack Burgers, I'm just going to delete one of them and only keep one that I think I need, I would have lost this description right here. If I had deleted the second record, this is different from the first record. So it's important that you do things like this just because you want to make sure that you bring all of that information over, especially if there's notes and follow-ups. You want all of that to carry over. If you delete one, you delete anything that's associated with it. All right, so the next thing I'm going to jump into is the idea of maintaining a style sheet. And so the main reason this is important is because everybody enters information differently. Now, if you have a really small team, it's probably, depending on the personalities in that small team, easy enough to implement, hey, we need to enter information this way. So phone numbers need to be formatted like this. You always need to make sure that you have this kind of information. That's always simple. But usually you have instances like this happen. Everybody puts something in different. So for country, for example, United States, US, USA, America, some people misspell America. This kind of touches back to what Ricky was talking about earlier. If everybody has a way of entering it differently, then that messes up your reporting. It messes up your filters. So if I wanted to send out an invite, I'm having a user conference in California, and I want to send out an invite to everybody in America, and I create a filter. I come in here, I set up a filter like this that says leads in the USA, and I think everybody did USA. So I do country is USA. All of a sudden, I've just been sent back with 3 records. So if I was looking at 10 before, this is a small sample. If I was looking at 10 before, I lost 70% of my potential reach on this. I'm only going to be able to send it out to a few people. So what's really important is to do something like Ricky was talking about, setting up pick lists, eliminating the opportunity for people to enter free text. If they do and everyone does it differently, you can always go in and set criteria that says it could be USA or United States or America, but people misspell things. There's always, it's so rare that you're going to be able to catch every single option. But if you have a pick list set up, then you can. They only have one thing to choose from. So with country, this can be a little daunting because there's a lot of countries out there. But this is really great, especially for your like lead source fields and things like that. You want to make sure that you get those set up with all of the values that you need. All right, and so finally, the last thing we're going to touch on is proper data sharing. So as your team gets bigger, this gets really, really important. Working with new customers, the first thing almost everybody does is they go into their data sharing settings and they select everything to public. So as you know, when you first start out, it's all by default set to private. Well, they'll go in, they say, I want everybody to see everything. And if your team is small, that's not necessarily a bad, but as the data grows and as there's more and more information in the system, this just becomes more of a problem. People in accounting don't need to see the data that's in the sales records. People that are in sales don't need to see everything that belongs to marketing. The more access that they have to data that doesn't even belong to them, the more room you open up for human error. People can go in and make mistakes. So it just makes sense to set up your role hierarchy. Take advantage of these areas where you can set it up so you can say people at the top can only see or can see everything, but the people at the bottom only need to see what belongs to them. So you just want to make sure you go in, you set this up to kind of mimic what your hierarchy looks like, or at least what your departments look like. And then make sure that the default permissions are either set to private or public read only if you really do need them to see it, but you don't want them to touch it. All right, so yeah, that's the end of my session.